during?
Yeah, so let's talk about the best
time?
types of assets, because these are the times when you can do really well and you can make really good moves, because there's going to be some distressed assets. I've got some clients that I'm coaching that jumped in right after 2011, right at the 2009 was dark. 2010 was terrible. The market just started to come back a little bit in 2011. They jumped in 2011. She was a doctor. He was a realtor. They still are a husband and wife realtor team. They're in Minnesota, their market. They started in 2011 with one house. Then they, just kind of same thing. They wanted to retire, replace their income. They didn't want to, work forever. So they started with one house. And then they, now here we are in 2023. They have 250 million in assets under management. They own, they started after the biggest, housing decline in the history of this country, and jumped right in feet first. They've been going ever since, starting with single family, did some duplexes, quads, and got into the small multifamily. Now they're developing townhouse communities and apartment buildings. They started buying bigger apartment buildings and, raising capital to do it. And, I think they retired themselves after the first 3 years they jumped in. So housing is number one. As we saw during the pandemic, everybody needs a roof over their head. That's the one asset that is going to always be needed and remain strong. And there's a huge demand and need for it right now. Whether you're building, for rent, single family, townhouse development, whatever it is, rental units are needed. Single family for sale units are needed. Multifamily units are needed. Condos are needed. There's a lot of markets where, developers are doing really well with condos. And when you get out of the residential market, then your next, best assets are going to be medical office, professional office space that cannot work from home, even in a pandemic. So those are the assets that kind of made it through the pandemic. And then obviously people need food. So grocery stores and grocery anchored centers are good assets to own. Right now, gas stations are good assets to own. The real estate's not a great business to run. It can be, but it's difficult. But the real estate, owning the real estate is a good play there. And then leasing to an operator, or owning the dirt and then, do a land lease. And then industrial, light flex industrial. You got to be careful right now because there is some contraction in the economy, and a lot of the Amazons and, companies are pulling back with, that last mile distribution. But self-storage has always been good. It's always done well in recessions. And that, that is something that is still growing and needed in a lot of areas because the population is growing. Wherever households are added, storage is going to be needed. So those are really the top assets that you want to, get involved with. Retail can be good in some markets in some areas, but retail is very fickle and very difficult. And then office in general, is the worst segment of the market right now, taking a beating in a lot of areas. But there will be opportunities to, redevelop and reposition some of those assets and do some different things. So it's a great time to be, looking, learning, positioning yourself, getting ready, and, building and preparing. There's gonna be a lot of opportunity coming down the road.